Patience, y'all. We'll get through it.
Gonna be the one. Gonna be the one. All right, I'm ready. Get started. I'm always all of that. Hey friends, I'm your host, Miss Sarah Spells, and I serve as that's not it either. We didn't even introduce what we talked about. Nothing. Nothing. On the top. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta be silly so you can laugh. Hey friends, welcome to the Artist Power Center virtual launch party. I'm your host, Nasira Spells, and I serve as the project manager of marketing and technology for the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts. I directly manage all the ins and outs of the Artist Power Center web app, making sure that we are delivering the best new thing to your fingertips. So let me talk to you more about what the Artist Power Center is, and then we'll get started with our program for today. The Artist Power Center is a digital web app that was created with the goal of connecting artists in the Bay Area to new opportunities that support their livelihoods, such as jobs, workshops, grants, affordable housing, and much more. Powered by the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, the Artist Power Center was created at the height of the pandemic in 2020 after seeing a need from local artists for relief funds. Since then, the Artist Power Center has evolved into a marketplace for artists at the intersection of creativity and social justice to seek out opportunities and connect with organizations that may not have otherwise been able to access. Artists who want to grow in their craft, connect with peers, access grants opportunities, and other resources don't have to look any further. The web app will specifically target and provide opportunities for Black, Indigenous, people of color, non-native speaking, disabled artists, and LGBTQIA plus artists in the Bay Area, aiming to recognize and strengthen the power of artists as this is essential to the health and well-being of our communities. In addition to the powerhouse network provided by YBCA, we've onboarded 4 San Francisco arts organizations to serve as partners. Those organizations include Dancers Group, Arts Band, Theater Bay Area, and Intersection for the Arts. These Phase 1 partners have served as lead collaborators, providing feedback that can inform the future of the web app and its ability to support the livelihood of artists everywhere in the Bay Area, as well as beyond, as we begin to strengthen our community outreach. YBCA is working with other City of San Francisco agencies, including the San Francisco Arts Commission, with the goal to expand the group of public, nonprofit, arts and culture, and private partners to collaborate with across the Bay Area in early 2022. We will now turn it over to our San Francisco Arts Commission commissioners who have some words they would like to share with you all today as we begin to launch the web app.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ralph Remington, and I'm the Director of Cultural Affairs for the San Francisco Arts Commission. I'm here today with 2 of our commissioners, Commissioner J.D. Beltran and Commissioner Deborah Walker, who you will hear from in just a moment. We are thrilled to be able to join you as we gather in this beautiful virtual space to help celebrate the launch of this revolutionary new app. The Artist Power Center is an incredible resource which will help artists easily access opportunities, showcase their work, and connect with peers. I'm so thankful that we live in a beautiful and creative city like San Francisco that continues to step up to invest in the arts and support the artists. I'm so thankful that we live here with our guidance from our late leaders like Mayor London Breed, and who's showing the world that just how important the arts are and how special the arts are and significant to our economy. If we continue to help the arts recover, the arts will help San Francisco recover. The Artist Power Center app will help by empowering artists with a centralized platform that makes it easier for creatives, cultural workers, funders, and employers to connect, in turn, allowing them more time to create and do what they do best. We are so proud to have been able to partner with and support Yerba Buena Center for the Arts to help them in development and expansion of the Artist Power Center platform. This was made possible with a $250,000 grant from the Arts Impact Endowment Fund. I am looking forward to seeing all the amazing works of art and the makers who utilize this platform and see what they will create, as well as the grant and job opportunities that they will all access. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner J.D. Beltran, who will share a bit more about some of our initiatives from the city and how the city has focused on its support of the arts to make San Francisco and help San Francisco recover to its fullest capacity. JD?
Thank you, Director Remington. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here and excited as a fellow artist and as a longtime arts commissioner with an incredible passion for the arts and what the city has been able to do for artists. Our mayor, our beloved mayor, London Breed, the city of San Francisco, and the San Francisco Arts Commission have maximized the city's efforts in dedicating resources and funding to ensure that artists and arts organizations, whose survival is critical to our city's economic and cultural survival, can sustain themselves in our city, particularly during these really challenging times of the pandemic. Mayor Breed's launch of the San Francisco Creative Core pilot program in 2020 complemented the city's other major efforts to support artists, including the Universal Basic Income Pilot Program, just launched last year. The San Francisco Creative Core pilot provides economic opportunities for 60 San Francisco performance artists and visual artists who are underemployed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope this Creative Core pilot will provide economic opportunities to these artists who became underemployed during our pandemic. The Creative Core pilot program is part of Mayor Breed's ongoing focus on economic recovery and slowing the spread of COVID-19 in San Francisco. The Creative Core complements the mayor's and San Francisco's other efforts to support artists, including this new Universal Basic Income pilot program, which started last year. Additionally, the Arts Commission opened 4 other grant programs for artists, arts organizations, and cultural facilities. And last year, Mayor Breed announced approximately $12.8 million in general operating support grants to fund 227 arts and cultural organizations that enhance the city's cultural vibrancy. Mayor Breed also directed $2.5 million for an arts relief program that invested directly in working artists and arts and cultural organizations financially impacted by COVID-19. This deep support of the arts in our city continued just last week when Mayor Breed announced on February 4th over $4.7 million in funds to support neighborhood events and activities focusing on Asian American and Pacific Islander and Latino arts and culture. That funding will include money for museums and exhibitions and major cultural events, such as the Chinatown exhibition of the career of martial artist Bruce Lee and the Chinatown Light and Arts Festival, as well as Dia de los Muertos and other Mission District events. More projects include the development of a year-round film and media festival highlighting AAPI experience through storytelling, supportive performing arts centered around the Japanese American experience, a youth arts program in Chinatown, and the support and creation of a Filipino arts, history, and culture exhibit. In addition, 230 small businesses in Chinatown will receive $5,000 in COVID-19 relief grants. In addition to celebrating San Francisco's thriving cultural scene, this funding is part of the city's COVID-19 economic recovery plan, which hopes to attract tourism dollars. This allocation of $4.7 million to support community-serving nonprofit organizations will be completed through an open call RFP process, which is in conjunction with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development and the San Francisco Arts Commission. So please encourage all of the organizations that you know of and work with to apply. The Artists Power Center, which we are absolutely thrilled to launch today, is a strong component of and complement to these extensive efforts to support the city's arts and culture and arts community. The online creation of this online arts hub will aim to serve as a one-stop shop for artists looking for financial assistance, professional networking, and employment opportunities, and connect them with supporting organizations and resources. This arts hub can support Bay Area-based artists in securing work and funding, tapping into resources, enhancing their career skills, promoting their art, and connecting with other artists, sponsors, and galleries in one centralized place. A critical essential mission of the San Francisco Arts Commission is achieving cultural equity through the support of artists who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQIA+ in the Bay Area. The Artist Power Center aims to recognize and strengthen the power of these artists, and this mission is essential to the health and well-being of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Good job. My name is Deborah Walker. I'm an artist, and I'm also a commissioner on the San Francisco Arts Commission. I had the pleasure. Thank you. I had the good pleasure of joining just before, at the end of 2019, as we were beginning to get glimpses of what was going on in the world and in our city especially. As our city began to grasp the huge impact of what was coming in early 2020, the mayor put together an economic recovery task force. Even as we were unsure of what was coming, our mayor and those on this task force knew we were about to face a life-changing event. We knew as we began discussions that this pandemic would have an enormous impact on our city, and we held discussions for months on how to survive and recover from this pandemic, not really knowing what we were facing. As discussions went on, it became apparent that we needed to design immediately a flexible, substantive recommendations to help our city through this time and come out of it ready to face the future. We had to essentially build the plane while we were flying it. We really didn't know what we were aiming at, but we knew we had to come together and come up with recommendations for our city to recover. Not surprising, the arts from the beginning played a key role in these recommendations. Early agreement throughout the task force was on using our arts community to help our city recover, even as we are recovering our own arts community. The task force discussions focused on incorporating the arts into neighborhood-focused programs opening education hubs in our art spaces, programs creating and exhibiting art on the wood panels on storefronts throughout our city, and collecting them for ongoing exhibitions, which are even happening right now. We also organized artists and performers to activate these entertainment hubs, the restaurant supporting hubs out in the neighborhoods to bring in both performance art as well as exhibition as part of those supporting the merchant efforts. From the early days of COVID in 2020, the arts have been integral in our recovery in the city. And it is also very clear that the arts as an industry was incredibly impacted, and our artists and organizations remain challenged to reopen and reactivate. The arts industry remains affected by social distancing regulations that are constantly changing. It became obvious early on that we needed a hub to be able to coordinate and communicate within our city departments virtually and as allowed in person. We needed to be able to immediately notify our community of the regulations, the opportunities, and the path forward for our industry and our city. At the same time, our task force and the Arts Commission were reconfiguring staff and programs to aim at helping artists and organizations survive financially. They seemed an obvious conduit for these pilot programs. The UBI program provided artists with $1,000 a month for at least 6 months. That program has been expanded with private foundation funding. The Arts Commission also provided arts organizations with funding to reopen safely and funded the creation of an online arts hub, which we're talking about today, which will serve as a one-stop shop for artists and organizations looking for financial assistance, professional networking, and employment opportunities. The Arts Commission during COVID opened 4 other grant programs for artists, arts organizations and cultural facilities. The Office of Economic and Workforce Development made $250,000 available to fund artists to paint murals on closed up storefronts with the public, and also a program using artists to forward public health message themes on boarded up businesses in conjunction with the testing centers and food delivery, food hubs. And this activity continued through COVID and continues even now. So the art world has dramatically changed, especially during COVID. The need for quick response communication and assistance was crucial. But now it's even more important in our recovery. Getting the word out, getting the support out needs to happen yesterday. As staff at the Arts Commission pivoted, the programs developed were done in partnership with other departments across the city. These departments and these programs can now continue to be implemented through a common hub so the opportunities can be matched with the artists and creative personnel. And the training necessary to carry out these opportunities when needed can be offered, both online and in person. We need everything the city is doing and our community is doing in one spot. I know I speak for myself, but I think all of the commissioners are looking forward to this ongoing partnership. As we lay the groundwork for these pivotal programs, it's imperative that we all partner with all of you, all of our arts organizations and artists, and encouraging these broadening and empowering programs that get information and resources out quickly. We need you all, and I really appreciate how many of you are showing up to learn about this Power Center. We need you all to use this and get the partners that you work with out in the city and in the Bay Area to use this Power Center too. There's lots of opportunities. The Arts Commission wants to hear from you. I know we are really looking at these programs getting money directly out and making sure they're working. So please let us know how it is. And we are going to try and really maximize the effect of our arts on our recovery and on the world right now. We need this. We need the magic of the arts, and it is magic to help us recover. So thank you all for what you've done so far, and we look forward to working with all of you. And thank you, YBCA and the Power Center. And sorry I went so fast. I'm looking at
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to our San Francisco Arts Commission commissioner for that wonderful recap of the Artist Power Center and the amazing work that SFAC is doing with the mayor's office and local arts communities right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Are you all ready to see our demo video of the Artist Power Center web app? I need some applause. I need more. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yes, more applause, more applause. Get excited. Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you.
What can the Artist Power Center do for you? Founded and fueled by the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, we're a digital web app helping artists continue their creative journey through difficult times and economic uncertainty. Our mission is to support the livelihoods of Bay Area artists and cultural workers in collaboration with local partners, making it easier for artists to thrive, create, and grow. Think of the Artist Power Center as a multi-purpose pocket tool to enhance your career. After you fill out your Artist Power Center profile, we can recommend opportunities that you can pursue right away or save to refer to later. You can use the digital web app to explore the marketplace by filtering your searches into opportunity type, creative field, or location. You have the freedom to make your search as specific or broad as possible to help you discover meaningful, curated opportunities. From funding and internships to workshops and gigs, these are a handful of resources accessible through the Artist Power Center web app. With our Artist Help Hotline, you can go to your profile tab and book a one-on-one meeting with our community experience team. Don't sweat anything you're unsure about. They're on hand to chat and take you through the digital web app if needed. We want our community of creators to feel empowered in their calling, purpose, and identity as artists. Find your power with the Artist Power Center and be a part of an ever-evolving network. Out of a moment of crisis, we are working to create resiliency. Sign up now.
Thank you, Ruffin, for playing that demo video. Yes, more applause, more applause. Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that you all love what you're seeing in the app. We have much more in store for you. And now I want to turn it over to our guest speaker for today, Mr. Emory Douglas, in conversation and a fireside chat with Macleet Hadero.
Hello, good people of creativity. Glad to be here with you. My name is Macleet Hadero. I'm an Ethiopian American singer-songwriter and composer and chief of program at YVCA. So honored, thrilled, just plain old happy to be here in community and sharing space with Mr. Emory Douglas. So if you don't mind, good people of creativity, I will start with reading his bio, because if you don't know, you gotta know. Mr. Emory Douglas is a social justice graphic designer, best known as revolutionary artist and minister of culture for the Black Panther Party. His iconic art and design concepts were a core part of the Black Panther Party, and his art from there made its way into popular culture as well as into the hearts and minds of people for whom justice and equity matters more than anything. He's had countless exhibitions and articles written about him. He's a global figure in the movement for racial justice and human rights. And folks, he is here with us today for this fireside chat. Wherever you are, snap your fingers, clap your hands. I don't care if nobody can hear you. You gotta make some noise. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. You know, it's funny times we're living in. Strange times. It's challenging times.
Yes, it is. Whole new world.
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whole new world every day. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I was trying to think about when we met.
Mm-hmm.
must have been like 15 years ago in the Mission District.
Yes, it was. It was. Yes, it was. That's a little. I believe a little display going. I believe in the Mission. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember it was like it was kind of it was almost like a shock for me to see like this this luminary of arts and activism, like just a building power and community like every day, like in the way that you just walked through the world. And I just, what I've observed is that like you've traveled extensively, like folks around the world know your work, know what you stand for, but everywhere you go, you're just you have this way of just being present with the people. And I wondered if I could start just by asking you what it means to be an artist grounded in community.
Well, it means that your artist grounding means that your art is a reflection of the community, and that is not a me art, but a we art. It's that connection between the community and yourself, and your observations of what's taking place and what the daily concerns and issues are for quality of life, and you try to interpret that in the art, and therefore it's that's the connection, that's the link, that invisible aspect of things.
And my observation is also that for you it's in your art, but it's also just the way you live. Is that how you see that?
Yeah, in that context as well, because coming out of the social justice movement in regards to the Black Panther Party, it was how we lived. Yes, we were out there to serve the interests of the community and to be in conjunction and understand the things that were needed. And so that's the way we lived among those in the community who were reaching out and concerned about issues and trying to work with them around those issues. And so you live that 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yes. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yes.
That's
Leap year be 366.
and like 10 minutes or something, like, right, like so tell us about how you came to be the graphic designer. I've heard you describe yourself as a social justice graphic designer. Like, tell us about how you became the social justice graphic designer of the Black Panther Party.
Well, eventually I was at City College of San Francisco, and I was involved in the Black Arts Movement, and then went to City College of San Francisco. While there, I connected with, this is during the Black Conscious era, when we began to define ourselves as not the colonial, African American. Those discussions were going on, as opposed and negating the colonial name given to us, Negro, and changing the student unions from the Negro student unions to the Black student unions. Those were challenges on the campuses during that time. And I got involved with actions that were taking place. At the same time, from being in the Black Arts Movement, there were people who knew me, who was very connected with. And there was a brother who asked, and they were planning a meeting to bring Malcolm X's widow to the Bay Area to honor her. And they knew of my work in the Black Arts Movement, so they invited me to the meeting because they wanted me to do the poster for that event. And when I went to that event, they said that some brothers would be over the next week to let them know if they were going to do security for that event. And that was late January, early February 1967. They came over to that meeting, and that was Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. And they had agreed to do the security for the event. It was after that meeting, I knew what I wanted to be a part of, so I asked them how I could join. They had a business card and gave me a card. And I used to call and make appointments to go over to Oakland from San Francisco because I was living in San Francisco. I used to catch the bus because I didn't have a car then. And I would go by Huey's house. He would show me around in the neighborhood. Then we'd go by Bobby Seale's house. So that was my first beginning involvement in the Black Panther Party. Going fast forward to around April of 1967, Bobby, when them had also connected with Eldridge Cleaver, who they knew had been who as a writer who had just gotten out of prison, and they made a connection with him. And so because he was on parole, he was not allowed to be around the Panthers or what have you. But because he worked for a progressive magazine named Ramparts Magazine, they allowed him to be a reporter for them to cover the Panthers. So therefore, he was not in violation of his parole from being around the Panthers. And so what happened is that they used to, they were trying to recruit him, and they finally got him to do some writing, and they were always coming over to a location in San Francisco called the Black House, where a lot of cultural events used to go on. Sonia Sanchez, Ed Bullins, Emiri Baraka, Stokely, all those folks used to come through there. And Eldridge lived upstairs in the Victoria, and everything, and the culture stuff was downstairs. So it was one day, weekend day, I went over there. Nothing was happening, but Huey, Bob, and Eldridge were downstairs because they were always coming over there to kind of connect with Eldridge, to pick his brain and all those things. And they would usually go upstairs to where he was living. So nothing was happening. And then when I came in, I seen Bobby working on this first legal size sheet of paper. And it was about, he said this was the first paper. And it was about Denzel Dow, a young brother who had been murdered in North Richmond. And I seen him working, and I said, well, I still got materials from City College that I can help you with, to improve it, like my rub-off type and all those kind of stuff that could improve the quality of what he was doing, because it was done on a typewriter, and the headline was done with a marker. So I had maybe stuff to improve it just a little bit better. And so I said I can go home and get it and come back. So I did. I went home and came back. When I came back, he said, well, you've been hanging around and seeing the committee, but we finished with this one. He said, but we're going to start the paper, and we want you to be you'll be the revolutionary artist. They had the whole vision for the paper. They said, we'll tell our story from our perspective and be like a double-edged sword. It can praise you on the one hand and criticize you on the other. And they said, we want you to be the revolutionary artist for the paper. And eventually you become the Minister of Culture. So that was my involvement in regard to working in the paper, contributing my craft of what I had went to City College for, to use it in the context of social justice movement.
And it really grew from there. I mean, because this was a paper that at its height had 400,000.
Yes, it had a readership of maybe 400 to 100,000, 200,000. No, had a public, excuse me. You had then it was scientifically acknowledged that a paper was read at least by 4 people. So we had a publishing printing of about 100,000, 200,000, and a readership of 400,000. Yeah. And so in the beginning, it was just myself and the Eldridge working on the paper out of his studio apartment. And Huey and Bobby would always come over, and little Bobby Hutton, the very first members. And Bobby would always check out. And sometimes Bobby would help because he had a little drafting skills and what have you. And so, and then we, it was like a portable operation. We could pick it up and take it wherever we needed to move to in the beginning phases. So we didn't have not a lot of technical equipment. We just had a regular table, light from the windows, maybe ceiling light. You had some rubber cement glue or some of that Elmer's glue, and it was typed on a typewriter with the ball at that time. We had rub-off type that we used for the headlines, those kinds of things. But he eventually evolved into a full-fledged operation where the paper was initially, it came out, we would try to get it out maybe once every 2 weeks, but it maybe came out when we could get it, we could do that. And then eventually we finally got it on a regular schedule. And it was, and as it evolved, it was, operation was a 7-day a week, 24 hours, 366 days a year operation. Production, we're dealing with all the materials that needed to be printed, not just the paper, but other materials. Then we had our own community printing operation where we did community printing because understood how to undercut the costs that the community couldn't afford if they went to a regular commercial printer. So we could undercut those charges by 50% or more.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was also about so that way we were connected from that point perspective with the broad base of the community, and people would come to us to look at our paper to get, because it was telling our story and their story. And initially, while I was doing maybe first 3 or 4 papers, I was doing just the production work. Then I began to integrate artwork into the art paper itself. As it evolved and the party grew, you had others who came in who has maybe some art skills, who come in, artists who came in, even much greater art skills than I. And so but it was my responsibility when they were assigned to work with me to show them how to integrate the politics into the artwork itself.
Can you say more about that? Tell us more about how you would talk about, how you would teach about, how you would integrate the politics into the artwork.
Yeah. Well, I always say it was I wouldn't use the language that you use if you were in the field talking to someone, the technical language. I would explain to them, well, you gotta, this is a sheet. You got to put these blue lines on here, and they're non-photographic. You're gonna cut this out. You're gonna paste it here. You're gonna paste it there. Then they got the feel of that, and as they begin to internalize that basic language, then you can begin to integrate whatever the technical language may be in the context of for example, headlines and body text and all those things. Yeah, or cropping photographs. You just tell them you got to cut this like this, and this is how we cut them, and those kinds of things. And it became each one teach one.
That's right.
Because I remember in the beginning, when it was just myself working on the paper, we were invited to Cuba in early 1967. And Huey Newton wanted me to go to Cuba. But Bobby lobbied against my going to Cuba. He said, well, Huey, we ain't got nobody to work on the paper. So I wasn't able to go. But thereafter, we started, when the party began to evolve, and that we began to implement each one, teach one. And that's what it came in regards to showing those artists who had art skills, but didn't have the production skills on how to do the production aspect of the paper. Therefore, that meant I could do other work. And if there was necessary to travel, then I was able to travel.
Yeah, it's like it's that sense of building power.
Yes.
Building power, building community, and mutual rising.
Yes, together. Yes, that's absolutely. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how you would choose the inspiration for the images that you would create?
Well, you were listening to what was going on, the concerns of the people in the community. You hear the suffering, the pain, the joy, all those things through conversations. They would always come in and talk about newspapers, but then they always talk about how they couldn't afford to pay the rent, or they would have issues on their job, all those things. Being out in the community, doing work in the neighborhoods, you hear those things, you observe them. And so that becomes a part of the artwork. It reflected in the artwork itself. And so that's why it's called a we art, not a me art. And they become the heroes in the art. They become the performers on the stages. And because the fact that they see themselves in art, they see their aunties, they say, someone say, remind me of my auntie, this remind me of my brother or my sister. So you know that you're dealing with something bigger than yourself in that context, because now is take out a whole nother dynamics and in the context of how they see the art. And art was also in relationship to when we started the paper. They said we want to have a lot of art photographs and art in the paper and captions, because then the Black community that we were serving was not a reading community, but they learned through observation and participation. So for those who weren't going to read the long articles, they could look at the artwork or the photographs or the headlines and get the gist of the story. You see, so we had that whole vision in the context of serving that community that is more so even today with the fast lifestyle in the computer age. Yeah.
It's interesting because when I hear you talk about the paper and that time, everything is very integrated. Mm-hmm. Like the artwork integrated with the political message, integrated with the community needs. And then but your artwork has traveled. Your artwork has moved in so many directions and inspired so many different folks around the world who are working towards justice and equity. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about building solidarity, because I feel like that's been just a huge part of one of the messages that I've seen from you so many times in your creative expression.
Yes, well, that was always the foundation of the Black Panther Party, was solidarity with the oppressed people's struggles around the world. You know, because we were opposed to the war in Vietnam. You know, all those things. We had solidarity with the African liberation struggles. You know, with the struggles in here in the United States and in Haiti, all over the world. And so that it was always found, and in our paper in the middle section was always an international section in the paper that dealing with international news and what was going on around the world. And so that we were always in that context. That was one of the reasons why I believe, for example, when we were invited to Cuba, when I didn't go, but the first minister of education went. His name was George Murray. He went and as our representative. Yeah, and we had been invited. We had representatives go to Japan. Albert Bickman Howard, another Panther, Japan. We went north. We went to North Korea when they defied, say you shouldn't go. We went to North Vietnam. You know, everywhere, all over the world. We supported the draft resistors, and so we had Bobby Seale and others who used to go to Scandinavia, where many of them went into exile. They used to sell the papers over in Scandinavia. You see, but see, also we had a chapter in London, the London Panthers. It was an official chapter at one point. Then, and also in the unofficial chapter was in Australia, but they were in Brisbane, Australia. But then you had an official chapter of the Polynesian Panthers in New Zealand, who became official chapter in 1971. Yeah. So it was always international interconnections in the Black. Then you had the Brown Berets, the American Indian movement, who acknowledged and says that it was inspired by the Black Panther Party. The young lords, Puerto Ricans in Chicago and New York. Yeah. Then, you know, so you got all those, and the Iwakun and the Red Guard, Asian Americans, Chinese Americans. We used to go shoot pool in San Francisco in the Chinatown with the Red Guard. That's how they became inspired. They were a gang, and they started. We were all connected with them, and they began to get involved, politically involved. Yeah.
Building solidarity with the oppressed peoples around the world, and also in other, like everywhere in
absolutely,
other neighborhoods.
Yeah, yes, and we, you know, all the students' resistance and struggles that went on in South America, south of the border, all those things were always in a part of the our solidarity, reflected in solidarity of our paper and how we presented our perspective. And our perspective was based on our 10-point platform, quality of life issues, of what we wanted and what we believed. Yeah.
I've heard you talk many times about inspire. I'm sorry. I'm gonna enlightening, informing, and educating.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, being enlightening means that you have to be informed by what it is things that's going on in the real world, and then you're trying to inform and enlighten people to be inspired so they can be inspired by it, to be inspired with, and that's what it means to be enlightened, to be inspired with, and so that comes from interactions, and that means sharing, but you have to have a deeper knowing too, and feeling and understanding. It's not just the intellectual aspect of what you're doing, it's also a deeper expression that comes through in a vibration that exists between those. And I mean, so that means you informed, enlightened, and being, educated at the same time. Yes.
I'm wondering, who are some of the artists who are inspiring you today?
Well, I'm still inspired by social justice issues of concern. Dealing with the institutional racism, structural racism, dealing with the police abuse and murders, dealing with climate change, all those issues. What inspired me, in that context. But I always explain too, I never like to just mention artists because you always leave somebody out. But there are many young artists that I'm inspired, have been inspired by young artists. Yeah. Yes. The younger generation of artists. And particularly when I was traveling and I would see the graffiti, when graffiti first started. And I couldn't break the code of what was being said, but it was so powerful and impactful, colorful, and knowing it had a resistance in it. And it was, so I began to see that as it captured my attention, and it brought me to the point of where it inspired me to the point of where I began to do more colorful artwork, around issues that people would probably normally wouldn't look at otherwise.
There's something also about graffiti which has a very like what you were saying before about the paper reflecting the community's own stories, the place where and then the walls become that place.
Yes. But then we had a language, we were creating a revolutionary culture.
That's right.
As we evolved, so everything that we was doing is a part of the performance, a cultural performance in that context, in that sense. Yeah.
Say more about that, a cultural performance.
Well, that means the style, the way we dress, the way we talk, all that. It became something that the people began to interpret and deal with in their own ways, whether they agreed with us or disagreed with us. They were still doing some of the same things that we began to do. And that was the important thing. It was not necessarily, we weren't saying that we were the revolution, because it was always explained through Huey Newton that said that the party was meant not to be forever, but to negate itself. And that means the people would take up the revolution and continue on for change in that context, you see. But in the style of the cultural aspect of it and what we were doing, setting up the child care centers, community began to do that as well. I mean, that wasn't a thing being done on a grand scale, and it wasn't necessary that we were the first ones to do it. But because we had captured the attention of the community and those who were in need of those, and they seen us doing it, it began to say, this is a great idea. And we began to talk about it. And not only did we embrace and have the Panther kids in our child care center, but there were the community kids as well. You see, alternative schools that we had come from our liberation schools. We had the Oakland Community School. We had a 200 kids with a waiting list of over 1,000 or more to get into it.
Wow.
And we had professional educators who come that help us set up the school. It wasn't in isolation. And when you had people like Maya Angelou, who used to come to the school and talk into the classrooms, you had Abby Lincoln, Abanala Masika, her name, who came and saved performance with the kids for 2 or 3 weeks. Oscar Brown Jr. We've had Sheila come through there. All those Santana, before he was famous, did some of the first performances for us. Grateful Dead, all those. We've had all kinds of folks in connection with our venues. Have many great jazz musicians. Charles Moffett, who's our music teacher at the school. And it was about the kids at the school. It was about not teaching them what to think, but how to think, so they can analyze for themselves. You see, so yeah, and they had their own committees called a method of correction. When they would violate stuff or do bad in the classroom, they'd have to come in front of their peers, and they would determine what the method of correction would be, whether they should be at home, no TV or whatever it may be, for the method of correction. Yeah. And we used to say, they used to send kids to us that they say were incorrigible. We said, well, all you have to do is show them tender love and care. And that's what we did. We have the house that we built for the Panther kids off of International Way on 29th Avenue in Oakland. That's a landmark house now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we went in there, gutted that whole house out, put new floors, put the bedroom, put the kitchen, everything could be done for the kids. Yeah.
And just so holistic.
Mhm.
Education, music, creativity, and everything.
Mhm.
The community needs, the newspaper.
Yes, health clinics. Yeah. In the South, in Winston-Salem, we had an ambulance service because the ambulance was the bigots, racists, wouldn't come in the community or on a reasonable time or those things. So the Panthers wouldn't got certified as ambulance drivers, and the community helped them buy an ambulance. So we had a real ambulance service. And when you're in the ambulance service, they were hearing all kinds of other needs people were talking about, the concerns that they were having and they were going through. So that there, you begin to think about other ways and programs that you can help the community. Just like the child care. I believe Bobby Sealer went to see his sister who was doing his child care. He said, man, if we did this and had the vision to say, if we did this on a national scale, the impact that it could have, because it's a need. And these things were to point out the contradictions that the government should have been helping with that they were not doing. So therefore, that's where we gained public enemy number one, was when they talked about the breakfast program and being public enemy number one, because that was the community began to demand for the free lunch program in schools and all those things. You see. So the community began to take on a responsibility of putting forth these programs. Yes. So you're leading by example. That's what that calls you the vanguard revolution. So it's not an arrogant word. It's not saying that you are the revolution. Just you leading by example. And the people may become inspired and inspired by it. And they begin to implement it and do it themselves. So the artwork reflects that as well. Yeah.
That's right. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on creatively right now?
Well, we're creative right now. I'm working to get through COVID.
Every day, you know?
But at the same, I have art. I've remixed and reinterpreted some of the art that I've done. I've done some, I think, about the gentrification. I've done something about global warming, fossil fuel, all those things. Yeah. And it's a lot of young, youthful art that I've been involved with doing in some of the art that I'm doing now, because I think it's important to have the messages that can reflect them in the young people in the artwork that has a social message to it. So when they look at it and they say, you may even have to ask a question about it, at least they see a youthful person in the images themselves. Yeah, relating to themselves. Yeah,
That's right. Yes, yes. We've been at YBCA. We've been thinking a lot about the vital conditions of community well-being.
Yes, yes, and I still do also ideas to criticize the public figures as well in the artwork that need to be criticized. Yeah, if it's warmongering going on like now, I get on those issues when it's necessary. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. As the issues come up in the world, you are responding to them just as you always have.
Yes, I try to make the effort, make my contribution to that. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Well, I believe we are wrapping up here with our time with you. I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with us, for sharing the wisdom of your history and experience and perspective. There's no one like you. You're like it, which is to say, what we hope is that the principles that you are espousing are taken up by communities to be amplified, multiplied, but at the same time, there's only one.
Well, I humbly thank you for the kind words.
And I'm just so grateful, and we're so grateful that you were here with us for this time. And I will hand it over to Nasira and Lauren Ruffin, who I believe now will be showing a short video.
What a powerful fireside. Wow. What a powerful fireside chat that was. To hear from a member of the Black Panther Party and a revolutionary artist whose art transcends through many places and spaces today was truly inspirational. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed hearing from our SFAC commissioners, a thought-provoking fireside chat, and seeing a demo of the Artist Power Center digital web app. I want to close with a special thanks and acknowledgements to our design and development team at the working group and our engineering team at Brick Design. We could not have done this without them. Well, y'all, that's a wrap. Feel free to stick around and check out our other rooms in Oye, where you can connect with fellow artists and learn more about other projects, including the Healing Project, the Artist Power Convenings, and the San Francisco Guaranteed Income Pilot for Artists. Thank you.
Say, wow, look at this living room. Hey, Christian.
What's up, Angela?